So welcome along today. Today what we're going to talk about is transforming assessment with Google Classroom. I came up with the name for this presentation, and then I got a little bit nervous about the name for this presentation because I thought, well, if I don't transform anything, you're all going to walk away thinking that this is a bit of a failure, and that's not going to be very good. So I tried to come up with something that I thought might engage us in just rethinking some things about how we might use Google Classroom with some of the new features that are coming along. Also going to chuck some AI in at the end for good measure. But as always, please feel free to use the chat function to ask me any questions. If you don't feel comfortable asking questions there, I will stick around at the end of the recording and I'll take the recording off and we can have a chat. That's also fine with me as well. So make some notes. Hopefully you guys have a good chance to play today. That's what I'm really hoping we get out of this. And yeah, there's something in this for everyone. So I thought how we start this today. Well, I thought in lots of my work, so for reference, my name's Luke Starzak and I'm a digital education coach with a new unit called the Digital Guarantee Unit. Some of you may have heard of us before, but I left the classroom in July last year. I'm a seconded educator. And I've previously been at Murray Bridge High School in Norwood. Murray Bridge, I was there for the longest. That's where I started. I was there for 10 years. And lots of the stuff I've been looking at recently when I've been working with schools is talking about, you know, this idea of allowing students to represent their understanding in their way. And I was thinking about this, how might we allow our students to express their learning in ways that they connect with and really connecting with that idea that we get from universal design for learning. And sort of allowing for that creative representation or expression of their knowledge and through Google Classroom. And I thought, look, there are ways to do that are quite standard within Google Classroom. So we've got these like formative assessment things, which isn't really this expression, but I still wanted to raise it, which is, you know, how do we check for understanding from our students? Well, we can do that by asking a question. We can create a quiz. We can create a Google form, we can use a practice set, we can do a YouTube assignment, or we could assign books in read along. And all of this allows us to check for where the students are at. Well, I've selected a couple of these to talk through now, and then I want to get into some a little bit cooler stuff. Well, stuff that I consider cooler. Hopefully you guys consider cooler as well. So if you don't know, if you are new to this, if we wanted to create a new question, so ask a question within Google Classroom, what we would do is go to the classwork page, click create, then question, short answer, multiple choice, all that sort of stuff. Let's just have a look at what this might look like. So if we jump into Google Classroom, this is what it starts off looking like. This is, just so you know, this is your stream. This is a new feature. If you haven't used Google Classroom recently, I don't know if you've noticed this, but this is a new feature and you can go and put links in there for students to use. Quite beneficial, I think. I've seen some teachers use that really well. We're going to talk about this new feature as well a little bit later on, but we're going to start off with how we might ask a question. And I think this is an important thing because sometimes we don't look at all the options that are available to us. So we can go and ask this question, you know, we could ask them to explain the particle model in, you know, in the context of melting ice, you know. We can ask them to do that. It's probably a short answer, not a multiple choice, but just to point out that you could do that in this. But within that, what else can we do within here? Well, we can allocate it points. So we can say it's unmarked because it's formative and we don't really want it to contribute to anything. But these two options are the ones here that I think sometimes that we gloss over a little bit. So we do have these two options down here, which is students can reply to each other and students can also edit their answer. And I want to talk about that very quickly. This one here, if you've never done it before, it's really interesting how it works. If I assign this to my students, they can reply to each other, but only once they've answered the question themselves. So that's how this works. It's not that they can sort of wait for the answers to filter in, reply to each other, edit their answers. That's not how it works. So how it works is the student sees the question. Only once they've answered that question do they start to get the other options of replying to each other. And I was thinking about this in terms of formative assessment, a really cool way to actually get students, and I understand about consolidating misconceptions, which can happen if you did this, but to get students to sort of have that dialogue with one another, with you there as well, and you can oversee that, but actually having that dialogue with one another to say, hey, did you realize this? Did you realize this? Another thing about questions, you can actually upload other things to support those questions as well. So that's how we might create a new question. What else have we got here? Well, what about practice sets? I wonder how many of you, you can see that emoji button down there. Hopefully send a reaction. It's a little face. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you have used practice sets before. So thumbs up or thumbs down if you've used practice sets before. Thumbs down, beautiful. Okay. All right, well, we're not going to gloss over it then. So practice sets are an interesting way to do some stuff in classrooms. So if we go back, we're just going to get out of this one. Over here, you'll see you've got this resources list, okay? And so what we can actually do is we can go into create assignment. We've got this thing called a practice set. We can jump into there and we can go and create a new practice set. Now, what do practice sets do? Well, what they do is they allow you to set up, I guess, a form of information for your students to complete. But the cool thing about practice sets over Google Forms is they actually get feedback the whole way through. So what you can see is we just see a video as we first jump into this. There's also some really cool insights. Hopefully you can see that it actually, I've used this when I was teaching, I use this a lot, where it tells you, hey, just so you know, question 2, your students are struggling a lot with that. And that, I think that's a really good insight for that sort of stuff to get. The other thing you can now do is you can now import questions from Google Forms. So you may have Google Forms that exist already, and what you can now do is actually import them. Just so you know, you can also import from a PDF as well. And so let's ask that same question I asked before. Oh, here we go. We've got another one that's just popped up here. You can also add a JPEG, PNG, or GIF as well. In my previous teaching role, I was a senior chemistry teacher. So I used to, So what I used to do is I used to actually jump into these practice sets and put a picture there. And then with the picture, it would actually allow them to see the structure of the chemicals. So rather than trying to stuff around with, using maths formulae to actually write out the structure, we did it like that. So let's ask that question again. I asked them to explain the particle model in the context of melting ice. And so what we do is we can go in here. This is going to be a short answer. And did you see what happened there? Is that these videos start popping up. Because what's happening is as we go down here, we go, well, what's this suggesting? So we've got some learning skills in here. And that's the really cool thing about practice sets is that for maths and science, and I'm not going to lie and pretend that it's got really good stuff for all of the subject areas, because largely this is generated based on American standards, but for maths and science and some of English, they're actually really good. So describe the particles that make up matter. Why that's useful is that then gives students some ideas for what they might want to investigate. Now, I'm telling you right now, I'm probably not going to use the standard model for this because that's not connected. So what I can do is I can actually get rid of that. What is matter? That's a pretty cool one. But I also, I love the crash course chemistry ones. And so what I might do is say, well, I actually want crash course particle theory. And I might actually want to add a video that sort of adds that in. So particles of your world, sure, let's just jump that one in there for us right now as well. And here we go. Now we've added that skill. And then we might have another question. Hopefully you guys can sort of see as we go on how this operates. Where this also has a really big benefit for students, though, is that we can go try a student, and this is what they see with this. So let's take a look. They can actually, I'll do that yourself. Let's just ignore this part. Is that while it's loading this practice set, they can actually show their working. So they can actually tell you, well, this is how I got to my answer. So I think it has something to do with fast moving particles. Okay, but then they might give their other answer up here. Anything that is put into there, you can actually see. Now, they also have the option of using a pencil, you know, and actually writing this out or drawing what their understanding is as well, rather than just writing. So some really, I think, good options for students for how they might answer these questions. Now, what you can see is that light bulb is showing up, and it's going to show a hint. And the hint is that first video I put in, because I thought that Crash Course Kids video might be really, really helpful for them. And they can jump into there now as well. Okay, so that's practice sets. And yeah, I think it's a really cool way to sort of engage our students in something a bit different. I've just realized that I haven't shared my screen then, so that was fun. So sorry, people. And so this is what I was showing here, is that the students can actually write their understanding in this box here. Sorry about that. So if we go back here, let's have a look at what other options are open to us. So we're just going to get out of here. And who has used YouTube assignments before? Has anyone used YouTube assignments? Thumbs up or thumbs down using just the emoji there for me. Yeah, cool. So once again, I should probably pick something else, but I just know that this one works. So Crash Course Chemistry, if you jump into here, what we can do with YouTube assignments is, if you might have used other products like Edpuzzle before, this one is now embedded into Classroom. Just by the way, coolest thing about YouTube in Classroom, all ads and suggestions are removed, even in the stream. So you can actually, what I used to do is not even give my students the link to the YouTube. I would just have Classroom sitting up on the screen all the time. So whenever I wanted to use YouTube, I just put the link in there, and then it makes it that there's no ads or anything that I've got to worry about. So we'll go on the nucleus, and then what you'll see is you can choose to ask your questions, or there's actually AI suggested questions in there. So we can jump into here and we can assign this as a task to our students. And what happens with this is that it goes through and it pauses the video and asks the students to interact. So let's just see what this looks like quickly.
Hello, I'm Hank.
So we'll go up to roughly where the video.
We're running around saying that, and you want to know who settled it for good? Einstein.
Okay, and then what's going to happen is the students get this question of, what is the scientific definition of a theory? And they have to go and answer those. The insights for YouTube questions, exactly the same as practice sets. And also, by the way, read along, where it starts to collate all the information about which questions students are having problems with, which ones they might need more help with, or which ones they're actually doing really well with. So yeah, this is, I think, a really good use of how we might do things a bit differently. So we've spoken about practice sets, spoken about YouTube videos in Classroom. In terms of creating assignment, hopefully you guys might know how to do this. I just want to talk through a couple of options though. So when we create an assignment, we can attach docs, sheets, slides, vids. I haven't put Word and Excel up there, and the only reason for that is you can attach them, but they're not interactive when you do it. And so I don't tend to recommend you do that. If you've got a Word document, just convert it to a Google Doc and then upload that. When you do this, you can choose where the students can view the file, edit it, or make a copy for each student. So the make a copy is that template one. Hey, I want my students to have a copy of this template and give them each a copy. I think that's a really good use. Edit the file. I've used that before in brainstorming. I've actually created assignments with a document for each of those options before, where I've got the task sheet as a view only. I've got a collaborative brainstorming slide deck where we might represent our understanding. And then I've got a template I actually want the students to fill out. But in terms of representing learning differently, I thought, well, how could we do this a bit differently? Well, what we could do is we could create a portfolio assignment. Now, when we do this, what we actually have the option of is, I'm going to show you this right now. So if we jump back into Classroom, what we can actually see is that we can click create. So here's your attach. This is where you would attach things or links or YouTube or upload, all that, okay? We're talking create. What does create do? Create makes a blank copy of each of these things. Okay, so we could create a brand new doc. We'll click on that now. And what will happen is it'll create this, this document that is just blank. Now, with that, you can actually, right now, you can actually go into there and say, well, what I actually want this to be is I want it to be, you know, I can write out my task sheet. I could say it's a task tracker. Let's just chuck that in there. And now every student will get a task tracker. So I've put that in there. Now all my students are getting a task tracker. Or I could just leave it blank, okay? So when we do that, we're then gonna make a copy for each student, and now they're each gonna get a copy. But I was thinking about this and I was like, what else could you do? Because I think there's some cooler stuff here. And one of those is that we can actually create brand new Google Vids. Now, I'm gonna hazard a guess that not many of you have used Google Vids before. So what Google Vids are is it's a really cool way of just having an inbuilt video generation software. Now, the only way you get this is through Google Workspace for Education Plus. If you don't have that, like if you can't see the vids option in your classroom, it means you don't have that. All you have to do is send a ticket to ICT, then send me an email, okay? I think you've got my email there. If not, I'll chuck it in the chat after. And then I'll follow that up for you. So create new Google Vids. And what we can then do is we can maybe get our students to represent their understanding in Google Vids instead. Okay, which I think is another cool way of doing this. I got taught this really interesting tip the other day though, is that because of how well Google Vids and Google Slides play together, have a look at this cool trick. So you can't see this, but I've just gone back into my slide deck and I'm going to grab all the slides from my slide deck from today. And yes, Sam, that's a Workspace for Education Plus as well, sorry. Yeah, so that's one of those ones you've got to request. And what I can do, and for some reason it's not working, so let's just try that again. Ooh, I literally just tried this and it worked. Let's just pretend that you saw me do it. And we can actually copy and paste all of our slides from a slide deck into here. Now, I'm not saying you would necessarily want to do that for an assignment, but it is a cool idea of get students to create something in Google Slides and then copy and paste that Google slide into Google Vids. And then what might you do with it there? Well, if you've never used Google Vids before, let's have a little play. So what we can do is we can put some audio backing behind it. And I was doing this before music, like that would be fun. So we can go and grab this upbeat music, fun upbeat song. Let's see if this one's any good. That sounds good, all right. Great, and we go and chuck that in and say we want this video going here. This audio. Right, so now we've put our audio track into there. Okay, and then what else might I do? Well, the other thing I might do is I might actually want to record a voiceover. And so when I'm doing my voiceover, I'm going to get my screen and my camera into here. And what I can do, sorry, I'm just going through some permissions. What I can then do is I can jump into my slide deck, and we can start to record my slide deck now. And you're not going to see this right now, but I'm going to do it and then pop it in for you. So find out more information for us from the digital skills training on Plink. And so what you'll see now is back in our slide, in our Google Vids, we can now import this video and chuck it in, and now it exists within our this now as well for us, which, yeah, I think is pretty cool. Hopefully you guys do too. So think about that, like you can do voiceovers for the students as well, and then they can, you know, jump into there and play that video and see what it does. So there you go. Is that okay? So we've done some Google Vid stuff as well. So let's jump back into our slide deck, and we're going to talk through some more stuff. So the other things I wanted to show you guys is I also wanted to show you what it might look like in terms of analytics in Classroom, because there's some new features that have come into Classroom. And so we've got one here, like view analytics for your class. This has always been there. But what's actually just come in is that now within Classroom, you'll see this stuff at the top here. And so what you can see is that it talks to you about what students' grades are tracking like. You know, these students, if you can see that over there, these students haven't visited your class in 3 days. 3 students haven't visited your class page in the last week. And there's also another one here where we can actually now go into our assignments, and you see this little thing down here where it says, hey, 3 students haven't opened this file yet for you. And so I think this is like really good for sort of tracking how our students are engaging with our lesson content that we're putting into Classroom. All right, that's lots of Google Classroom stuff. I thought we might have a bit of a play, if you're okay, with some AI stuff. So just recently, the Department for Education turned on NotebookLM and Gemini, which are 2 AI products from Google. And I'm really sorry that we're jamming this in at the end, because I probably would have liked to do this a bit longer. But I was thinking about, what does this look like? So just a bit of a thing just to put this right up front for you. Because you're operating within Gemini, within our department tenancy, and you're an education account, it means that none of the prompts or the information that you put into Gemini or NotebookLM is going anywhere else. So you can be guaranteed that your information is safe with the Gemini stuff in education. How have I used it? I was thinking about this and I was like, I would love to build these custom experts with gems. And what these look like, I've actually got this ready to go for you right now, is with a gem, we can actually create these AI experts. And so what about if we wanted to create a book for a particular student who wasn't really engaging with the books that we had in Read Along already? And so I thought about this and I was like, I want to create age and interest relevant books for students by asking about those interests. I want to make sure that the generated book content is suitable for uploading to Read Along. If you don't know much about Read Along, it uses Lexile levels and decodables. It's got this whole library there. And so what we can now do is we can use Gemini to rewrite those instructions for us. And now what happens is that we can actually interact with this expert and get it to create a book for us. And so we can say, create a book for a Year 3 student that loves Barbies and cars. And what it will do is start to ask us about what we want it to be. And we want it to, focus on CVC decodables, and it'll start to prompt us. And, how about a story of a Barbie car using lots of simple 3-letter words? Would a story about a Barbie going a picnic in her car be fun? Yes, that would be great. And so here we go. Now it's going to start creating our book for this student, which we can what we can now do with that is we can save that, go, yeah, I'm happy with that prompt. If you don't like it, you can actually go back in here and you can edit your prompt and then keep on going with it. And then now we've got our expert. All right. And so now we've got our gem. Over here is where you find gems. So when you first jump into gemini.google.com, you can go into Explore Gems, and all I did was just created a new gem, and I can go and edit that after. You can't share these gems with people, but what I've done with people is just go in here, go edit, Control A, Control C, and send the whole prompt to someone else if I think that it works really well. What else can Gemini do? Well, when we go into Gemini, we could start a new chat, and there's this really cool thing called Canvas now. And I've actually prepared some of these at the interest of time. And so Gemini Canvas, what it is it's a way for you to, you know, to create documents in situ or create simulations or other things. And so I thought of one. I was like, oh, I want you to make a quiz for my year 7 students. And what it does is it starts coding all this stuff for you, okay? And then it gives you a preview. And then what you can do is you can download that code, embed it into a Google site, and have your students interact with it. And they can go through and it will, you know, check the answers, and we can submit the quiz, and it tells you that it's wrong, all right? You know, interesting, because how this works is that, you know, that the students are interacting with that code. What else could we do though? Well, I made this one as well. And what this one is I decided, what about making an interactive unit circle? And you can see all my prompt is make an interactive unit circle for students that allows them to explore the unit circle. And this is what it is. And I thought, well, you know, how cool is this that we could get our students to interact with this model? And I created this. Like, I'll prove that I can make this really fast for you. So I went into Canvas, put that in there, and then this is what happens. And I'll show you this process. So I'm creating this interactive model, and what you'll see is the screen split in half in a second. And it will actually just start to code up this model for us. And unfortunately, and there we go. All right. I was thinking about further to this, like how cool would it be that, you know, let's say, because at the moment they don't have access, the students don't have access through their at schools account. How cool would it be for them to, you know, they might operate in this at home and start to play with the code of this when they're not in your digital technologies lesson, but they're in a maths lesson, and they're learning sort of what coding actually is. So that's another one there. We're going to just jump back to the slide deck for you quickly, because we've got about 8 minutes left. And so we've gone through Gemini Canvas, what that is. There's another one on here. I had a video ready to go of, like, you can upload documents into Canvas so that it operates within a model. So there's all the notes, and it's like, hey, can you help me to create a 5-minute video? You can edit it. So it's like a docs thing, but yeah, you can operate within that model as well. It's really cool. I've got some other ideas here. Like, what about if you had an existing template of a lesson plan, you put it into Gemini and then said, hey, can you make a new lesson plan for me for this, but using the template I've just uploaded? Or, you know, I don't know the roles that you guys have, but what about, oh, I want you to make an update to a policy, and here's a policy, and I just need you to help me out with that. Yeah, hopefully that's okay. Is that okay, people? Are we happy with that? Has anyone heard of Notebook LM before? I'm going to do this one. Give me thumbs up or thumbs down. This is our last thing we're going to talk about today. No, I love Notebook LM. I speak about it a lot. Notebook LM is really cool. So the difference between, let's just separate out, like EdChat is like Gemini, right? But EdChat is contextualized for South Australia. Notebook LM is really, really different. So how Notebook LM operates is that you can upload documents, and it is only able to reference those documents that you upload. So it's like a really contextualized large language model. And I've got one here for you guys to see. So these are my notes. And what I want you to notice about Notebook LM is that my notes are not a document. My notes are actually handwritten. So you can see there's an image there. And so what it's actually able to do is it's actually able to pull out information out of images. And also the other thing, I'm not going to show it here, but it can actually translate handwritten stuff as well if you have it in another language. But I thought about how might we use this, and there's this really easy way to create a mind map, and I've already made it here. And it's like, what if we went through on the board with the students before a test and we were like, hey, what do you want to know? Well, okay, we spoke about the greenhouse effect. Do you remember this? and go through this mind map of what they might need to know for the upcoming test. I've also done another one where, can I have a study guide? Give me a study guide for all the sources that you've got, and it can create a study guide. What you'll notice, see these 4 sources, it's only looking within the sources that I've uploaded. And so now it's going to create that study guide for me. I think I already did this one here somewhere. There it is. And so I've already done this one where it talks about the principles and things that I had mentioned. Keep in mind, this is stuff I mentioned. So how do I know that it's only talking about me and the sources I've given? Well, it actually references them. So when we have a look in Notebook LM here, what we can see is I've just picked one of the questions it wanted me to ask. And what you should see is from the output is it actually starts to reference where it got that information from, which is what tells you that it's getting it from the sources you upload. And so you can see here, this one's coming from source number 1, and source number 1 is the subject outline from SACE. Okay, but you can see all other sources here, and it's pulling out different bits and pieces from other sources. The thing people love about Notebook LM, though, that's really different is this feature. You can actually make a podcast where 2 AI people talk. Now, I've pre-made one, but only so I can show you this mode. So I saw a really cool example from someone where what they did is, let's just combine everything I've said today. What if you ask your students for questions they wanted to query about a topic? Okay, and you did that through Google Classroom. You get them to tell you the questions that you want to talk to this AI person about. And then what you do is you put this Notebook LM up in the board, and then you turn on interactive mode for them. And when you do that, why don't we ask the questions that the students wanted to ask? So in here, they're going to just start talking.
How do we really
so let's see
know
what they
what's
say.
going on around us? I mean, the things we can't see, the subtle shifts happening in our environment all the time.
Can you guys hear
Welcome
that,
to
by
the
the
deep
way?
dive. Today we're exploring
Yeah,
exactly
cool.
how chemistry, that fundamental science gives
So
us
it's just
the
going
power
to talk
monitor
about
our
this,
world and stand some massive global challenges.
talk about just a
Absolutely.
generative
And for
one.
this deep dive, we've gathered
But the purpose of
really
this is
interesting
for
set
our
of
students to
materials. We're looking
interact
at
with
a
us.
stage
So
2 chemistry outline.
Oh, hey there, what's up?
hey, I actually just want to know about the greenhouse effect. Can you focus on that for me, please?
Oh, absolutely. We could definitely do that for you.
Yeah, that's a fantastic place to focus. It's so vital to understanding our world right now.
So we'll shift our emphasis.
We're happy to deep dive into the greenhouse effect for you.
It's actually a really starting point.
We were going to get to it later, but let's dive in now.
It connects to so many other environmental issues.
What's fascinating here is that
Anyway, so hopefully you see like some purpose behind how Notebook LM might operate. I've got a few other examples here for you. What about uploading all your curriculum documents and then brainstorming how you could teach those with a multidisciplinary approach and actually get it to reference that? I've done that here. I thought, hey, what about year 10? Let's have a look at transfer learning and what that might uncover for us. I've already told you about the mind maps it produces. What about this one? I actually didn't show you, but using that last notebook, what I did is I said, hey, if you're a student in my class and only had access to the notes files I uploaded, which questions would you struggle with? And this is what it started to point out to me and say, hey, while the preceding steps allow for the calculation of the number of moles, the notes don't actually provide the necessary conversion factors or methods to convert for this question that you put into your test. So what I'm hoping is today, I have maybe raised some different things for you and how we might use some of these tools to uncover understanding with our students. I have got so many slides in here that I'm not going to go through. And the reason I put them in there for you is because what I find with these things is that there are so many things that I could talk about, but I didn't want to leave them out for you guys. So what I did is I put them all into the slide deck. You all have access to that. It's in the chat there for you. And you can go read through all my steps and everything. I hopefully have got enough information in there for you. On this one, this is a page where it sort of tells you about specific Google training that's available. Go into there. If you want to learn more about Gemini and Notebook LM, you can actually go into the Learning Center and learn about that stuff. There's some really good training about that stuff in there. But also just a reminder that We in digital skills do so much training. So jump onto Plink, click explore and go to digital skills in the menu. And hopefully you find some other courses that you might want to get into.